Hi everyone. I feel like it's been a while. It's been a week at least, or maybe two, since I've made a lecture for you. So this set of videos is going to be my last set of lectures, because this is we're in the fourth module, where we're moving into the fourth module. But the fourth module is very short. And will be over very soon, and probably won't require, since we don't have a reading response, probably won't require a lecture from me. I am making this, it is 7 p.m. here, so I was hoping to do it earlier, but I've been working on the readings and the lecture materials up until this point. So it's going to get dark in here, but hopefully with the lights that I have on, and hopefully with the lights that I have on, it will be fine, and also my chair won't break. My daughters, they think it's very funny that these chairs, they're like pretend chairs. They're like Goldilocks' chairs. So we have one marked broken chair, but they like to switch the broken chair sticker so that I will accidentally sit on one that I don't think is broken so that it will break. So I'm going to start with the syllabus. Then I'm going to move in to a lecture on intersectionality and pop culture, go over some of this material with you. Then I'm going to talk about your reading response assignment, and then I'm going to talk about the final project for the class. That's going to be a lot. I'm hoping that I can do this in my usual, fit it into 60 minutes and 3 parts lecture, but we'll see. It may go a little bit beyond that. It just seems to have worked out that way because I need to go over the assignments in this. Since this will be my last lecture series, that doesn't mean that I'm not going to be in communication with you. I'll be in communication with you over email. Also, I was thinking that we could do an end of semester Zoom session for like a half hour or an hour together, just for us to meet up with each other. So this wouldn't necessarily be about academic work, although we could certainly have an academic conversation. We could talk about the things that you've been reading if you wanted, but it could just be see how everyone's doing. I don't know if people are interested in it, but I'm thinking of right at the end of the semester in May, creating a Zoom session, inviting you to come, and then whoever wants to come can come. If you want to give me feedback about that, if you're thinking, oh, at the end of the semester, I don't want to have that, maybe we could do it before, or whatever your thoughts are on it, let me know. Also, I'll be wanting to know when a good time for most people is, although that's gonna be hard too, and I'll have to work it in with my schedule. Right now, I'm recording this on Wednesday night. I'm gonna send it to you as soon as I get these videos up, so either late tonight or tomorrow, early in the day. So we'll see what ends up happening. But what we have here on the schedule for this week is, last week you had read some of what we're going to be talking about. Today you read Kimberly Crenshaw's Beyond Racism and Misogyny, Black Feminism and Two Live Crew. And you read Killing Bill, Rethinking Feminism and Film Violence. So you're going to be thinking about race, gender, representation, and violence, which will relate to everything that we're doing throughout the rest of the semester and everything that we're reading. You also, so I have presentation materials from most people from the last group, and I will be sharing those this week as well. Again, I've said it in the email, but just if you watch this and you hear me, I stress again, please look at your classmates' materials. I think that they are very, very interesting slideshows. They would have been amazing, amazing presentations if we had had the ability to do it this semester. And I'm so sorry that we didn't, but we're doing the best that we can. So this week we're adding to your readings and thinking about film violence and thinking about intersectionality. We're moving into looking at Bell Hook's work. And I gave you 4 short essays by Bell Hooks to read, and I'm going to be talking about those in my lectures today. Aside from that, looking at some of the other articles, those I won't be able to cover in the lecture. There's just not enough time, and you won't need to use them in your reading response, although you're certainly welcome to. You're also encouraged and welcome to incorporate any of these readings into your final project and how you sort of devise that. For instance, if you want to take on looking specifically at violence, at feminist forms of violence, or as empowering forms of violence on film, if you think that there could be such a thing, and you want to form your last project around that, like that could be one way that would make some of these later articles that we're going to be reading relevant to you. As far as what's coming up, you have your 4th reading response due. That's your last one, so yay, that is due on Monday. And I had thought about pushing the date, but I don't think so, because I think we're just running out of time. We're basically wrapping up the semester here. We've just got a couple weeks left. And so just try to get that done. It should be something, especially after listening to this lecture, that you're able to do. Next week, you're going to be watching Black Panther and answering some questions on the film. And then we're wrapping it up with your final project. So by now, or by the end of, after you've listened to this and watched these lectures, you should have at least an idea about what you'll be doing for your final project. And if you want to run your ideas by me, just please go ahead and email me, and I'd love to see what you're planning to do. I also want to stress, and I want to stress that you shouldn't be stressed by the final project. It's supposed to be, I just created it. I was planning on changing the final paper, which last semester was an evaluative analysis. I just felt like I wanted to do something where you could take these ideas that you've applied and bring them to life in your own way, rather than just having to kind of like show me another form of analysis, which is evaluative analysis. I would rather have you take these theoretical ideas that you've been encountering in all of this work and try to, come up with your own way of responding and creating. And creation is a response. So when artists create something that they think is going to speak back to something, that is responding. Or if there's a gap in representation and a director wants to challenge, take that on in the film that they're creating, right? It's still a response. So no matter what direction you take that last final project in, it's going to involve you creating. And actually, once I'm done with this lecture, I'm going to go grab Jennifer Posner's book, because when I'm talking about the final project, I want to refer to certain ideas from the book, because those were great chapters, and I really basically I just created this new assignment using Posner's chapters as inspiration, and I hope that you found them really interesting, even though they're not the subject of the reading response that you're going to be writing. They are a big part of the final project, so they're really important. Okay, so let's start here. I've got the PowerPoint over here, so when I'm looking over here, it's because I'm engaging with the PowerPoint. Like, if it was back here and I could turn this into something neat, which I can't, then I would be talking about what's behind me. But you're hopefully able to watch this and look at the PowerPoint at the same time. I could turn it toward the PowerPoint and just have you listen to me with it on the PowerPoint, but you can look at the PowerPoint on your own. That's something that I'd rather have you have face-to-face with me in whatever form that we can make it happen. So this is intersectionality in pop culture. Really, I'm giving you the tools. I'm breaking down the articles. I'm highlighting important points from the articles that I want you to have, that I want you to understand, that I want you to take with you and be able to apply. And the application of an intersectional analysis, which is what you're going to be starting to work on doing, that's the goal. So I want you to be, as you're sitting here listening to me talk, I want you to be thinking about the pop culture references, the pop culture sources. So when I give you this theoretical material in class, I would be asking you to come up with examples of your own, which we always do. So just continue to do that and be thinking about that, and that will also help you connect with what I'm talking about and the PowerPoint slide and the articles, putting it all together to help you write that last final reading response and to help you synthesize and apply and become a user of these tools. Because intersectionality is a tool of analysis, And it's a tool of critical race analysis, and it's a tool of feminist analysis. So it's there to use. It's there to do something with. And with gender and pop culture, is particular with our focus on this and our study of this, like this is an excellent way to start developing a critical voice and being part of a conversation about pop culture and gender representation within it. So I begin this PowerPoint and this lecture by asking you, what is intersectionality? So if you haven't read the articles, and we were in class, I'd be introducing it a little bit this way by asking you just to think about the term intersection and then the term intersectional. What does it mean to be at an intersection? Well, you probably are thinking of exactly what the image that Kimberly Crenshaw ends up using, which is the image of an intersection that you pull up to walking or in your car. You have to make a decision. You're in that intersection, and it's a place where different roads meet. Okay, so this is the visual image. What other kinds of intersections can you think of? When someone says something like we are meeting at a crossroads, or we've reached a crossroads, that usually means like things coming together. Something is happening at this certain place. I also pose the question here, what does it mean to be at an intersection versus to be intersectional? So when we take this idea of an intersection, which is a very simple idea that two different factors or two different roads are crossing and creating a unique position that is the intersection. We think about this as a kind of a phenomenon, and then we start to think about what it means to be intersectional. Kimberly Crenshaw took this idea of an intersection and turned it into a action, to a tool, to something that is happening. It is something that we're going to use. So what does it mean to be intersectional? It means to think about intersections, right? To think about what it means, what's happening at the intersections. That's how we can be intersectional. So when we're watching films, we're watching television shows, we are looking at the various intersections that exist within representations, and what kinds of issues arise at being at specific intersections of identity. But I also want to hear from you. Just think about the concept on your own as well. I mean, obviously I can't hear from you right now, but that's sad. Okay, how long am I going to let this video go to? Maybe like 15 minutes? All right. My next slide says, why do we have intersectionality in a class on gender and pop culture? So these are just some of my thoughts on why intersectionality is so important. We sort of lead up to it, but really we have been doing intersectional analysis in the classroom. I've been doing that and incorporating it all along. That means we're always thinking about more than just gender. We're thinking about the specific circumstances that culminate and that are affecting any kind of representation, any piece of media, any way that something is produced. We have not been just thinking about gender. Our focus has been primarily on gender, but we've been doing intersectional analysis already. So that's really good news for you if you were intimidated by this idea of intersectionality and you read the articles and you still maybe didn't feel like you got it. You've already been led to do it. You've seen me doing it in the classroom in the way that I teach, because an intersectional form of analysis also translates into an intersectional pedagogy, which is something that I strive for, maybe fail at times to do, but continue to strive for. So in terms of my reasonings that I'm giving you for why it's so important that we add intersectionality in our class and in the work that you're doing, I have 4 points here. 1, if we are considering gender and pop culture through an intersectionality lens, then we're never just considering gender and pop culture. We've never just singularly only considered gender without, at least maybe in the moment we did, but also we always connect it with other factors. We're always also considering the ways in which race ethnicity, class, gender, sexuality, ability. Age isn't on this list, but certainly age intersect in representations within pop culture. It's not just a list, like that we check off when we analyze something and look at all of these factors. It's a path toward doing deep analysis and not just thinking about these factors independently, but thinking about how different factors combine to create certain situations. We want to be doing analysis that is a deep analysis and that considers how factors combine. That's a big point with intersectionality. Okay, second point here is that using this lens allows us to both broaden and narrow our analyses of gender. So the reason I say that, which sounds paradoxical, is that we're broadening by thinking about lots of different factors, but this allows us to look deeper. That's the narrowing. Because when we're just focusing on race or we're just focusing on gender, we're missing the part of looking at the specifics of how these two interact. Okay. And then I say that this is considering gender in context rather than out of context, because everything has a context. You can't look at something. It's not really fair to look at something without a context. However, we know that we do that all the time. We know that we look at things without context, and sometimes that affects our perception of things. And then when we're given the context, our perception can deepen. It can broaden, and it can deepen, and that's what I mean by narrow. It's just like to go deeper. Okay. Third point, intersectionality is a tool that acknowledges the specificity of locations and the complexity of situations that is necessary for the study of representations of gender in popular culture. So we're not really doing a fair analysis of gender if we're not doing an intersectional analysis, because we might be looking at something and realize that that we're looking at it through a classist kind of analysis. So we might be studying gender, but we might have certain ideas about class and assumptions about class or race that we disregard in that analysis that are really key to understanding how gender is functioning in that analysis. It really is key. Intersectionality recognizes positionality and relationality. So these are two core concepts in understanding intersectionality, with that visual of the intersection, where if we want to use race and gender, because Kimberly Crenshaw primarily does in the works that we're looking at, we want to be thinking about, okay, what kind of position does this create, and what kind of relationships are happening, and what constitutes those relationships, and what are the specifics of those relationships. You see how it sort of like gives us so much more to work with in our analysis. Okay, I'm going to stop this video, I'm going to go grab a book, and then I'm going to start talking about the pioneers who paved the way for a theory on intersectionality. All right, next video.